I would like to just offer an opening. I'd like for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about why you chose to run for superintendent of schools and your general vision. You'll have 1 minute for your opening. Dr. Barber.
Okay. Thank you. I'm Karen Barber, running for superintendent of schools. I've been an educator for 33 years, 23 years in Santa Rosa County. I've worked in the Navarre schools, Gulf Breeze schools, Milton schools, Shamuckla Elementary, and I've also been an adjunct professor for University of West Florida. And I'm from a military family. My husband is retired Air Force and my son is a major in the Air Force. So I understand military families and appreciate the challenges that come with that. As far as vision goes, ensuring financial and educational integrity, focused on recruiting and retaining those talented educators while responsibly addressing the need for growth, management, and school construction with input from the community. Creating meaningful relationships with parents that provide personalized learning for students, leading them to workforce-ready skills and promising careers, and creating a STEM innovation program leading to industry certification. And I also want to bring additional revenue to our county through advocacy and partnership at the state level and aggressive and intentional grant writing.
Thank you. Mr. Thorpe.
First of all, thank you for letting me be here today. I am Michael Thorpe. I am a product of the Santa Rosa County school system, graduating from Milton High School in 1987. I started my teaching career right here in the Navarre area, where I taught at Holly Navarre Middle School. Moved on to Milton High School, where I taught for many years, actually 13 years in the classroom teaching here in Santa Rosa County. I then moved into administration, where I've served as assistant principal, and now I'm director of instructional technology and professional development within our school district. And for our school district, what I see is a school district of opportunities. Many of you see the light bulb on my sign. Well, at least I hope you see that light bulb on my sign, because I've been buying a lot of signs. And that light bulb means a lot to me. It means a brighter future for Santa Rosa County. We have a high-quality school system, but we're not number one. We need to be number one in the state of Florida and do everything in our power to get there. That's opportunities for teachers, that's opportunities for students, and that's making our school district the best it can be. Thank you.
Mr. Gunter.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. My name's David Gunter, and I want to thank Jerry and Larry for hosting today and giving the opportunity for the citizens to get some information. I know it's been difficult in these times, but for me, when I look at my background, I've been in the business sector, which gives me a little bit of different background perspective on some of the things that I look at. I got a master's degree in human resource management, so I didn't really start my career as an educator. So for me, when I look at that unique mix of that business perspective, along with my 20 years in education, for me, that's really what I look at and will give me that unique perspective to make sure that the citizens of Santa Rosa County get the best investment in public education. Now, also, as far as my vision, I look at where we're at today, and we've done a great job with the STEM and the STEAM education and program. We've given a good foundation to our students. But for me, we need to go a little bit further, and we need to make sure that we have students that are both college ready and career ready. So for me, I see students graduating with a diploma in one hand and industry certification in the other. So if they want to have a choice to go to college, they can do that. But if they need to go to work the next day after they graduate, they certainly have that opportunity too. Thank you.
Thank you. Several of you have talked about the STEM Innovate program, and we've been involved with this initiative for several years now. Student engagement has absolutely increased, but what technology does our district still need to move this initiative forward? For example, is there a plan to take our district one-to-one with laptops or provide laptops or similar technology to every classroom? Mr. Thorpe?
Thank you. There is no plan right now to move us to one-to-one, but I'm not superintendent yet. We'll see. I do think we need to have more technology at the very advanced level. I'm thinking robotics. I'm thinking computer coding, computer science. As superintendent, I will be working very hard to put a recognized computer science program in every high school in the district, with a feeder program coming from every middle school. I'm very honored to be part of the two people, one's here and one's there, that created the STEAM program in Santa Rosa County. So I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish with it. We still have further to go. that program is not coming to an end. It's truly a transformation of teaching and learning in the classroom, because it is important that these students have experiences in the classroom that mirror the future world of work that they'll be entering. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gunter?
Yes. When I look at potentially expanding technology, one of the things I look at is how we acquire technology. And for me, again, it's going back to that business perspective. A lot of organizations that are the size of Santa Rosa County School District, they actually lease technology instead of purchasing technology, especially with the replacement cycles we deal with on 3-year cycles. So I think that's an option we need to look at if that gets us the best options available to get devices to students, and also to get the best dollar or the best investment for our tax dollars as we consider what we do. And for me, too, it's the application of technology. It's just not simply putting a device in a student's hand. Students have to relate to what they're going to be able to see down the road, and so they have to see what they want to believe in and what they want to become. So you have to put those in place, but also put them in the context of true world application. So we got 1/3 of our students that will possibly go off to college, and about 2/3 of them will be looking for jobs and careers. So we need to make sure we continue the great job with technology, but at the same time, we need to have it applicable to successful pathways and careers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Barber?
Yes, ma'am. We have almost 30,000 students in Santa Rosa County, and right now we have 18,000 devices that our students can use. And technology is a tool, correct? So we want to make sure we have equity and access to technology for all of our students. We're currently working with the Board of County Commissioners and some of the CARES Act dollars to acquire additional devices for our students. And we're hoping that over time we can build. My dream would be that we are a one-to-one district for many reasons, equity being the most important one. I think there are districts surrounding us that are one-to-one right now, and we need to really look at the plans that they have and learn from those districts who have already made that happen. What do we need to do to ensure that every student in Santa Rosa County has connectivity and the right tool to be successful in this environment?
Thank you. Any responses? Santa Rosa County was recently fined $650,000 because of a shortage in classroom time. Essentially, we cut 2.5 hours from the schedule. I believe that has been rectified now, but what changes are necessary in the future to ensure that similar problems don't happen again? Dr. Barber?
Certainly. The master schedule, all of our schools make terrific decisions. We have a lot of autonomy. We have administrators who are making decisions in the best interest of children. When we have an audit, it's called the full-time equivalency audit. That's when those fines happen as they look at the master schedule. So when we reduced that 30 minutes out of our schedule, out of our work day, we came very close to just meeting that requirement. And that's really where the problem started to occur. So we have to be very vigilant to make sure that lunch, recess, passing periods, and even when we do drop and read, everybody drops and read, those have not been minutes that we could count towards our full-time equivalency. So it's going to really be, we're just going to have to be vigilant to make sure that we stick to that master schedule and use every minute we can for instruction.
Thank you. Mr. Gunter?
Yes, thank you. For me, when I look at this particular situation, actually, repeat the question for me, please.
Sure.
So I can make sure I'm answering what you want.
Santa Rosa County was recently fined $650,000 because of a shortage in classroom time. Essentially, we cut 2.5 hours of educational time from the schedule. That has since been corrected, but what would you do to prevent similar problems from happening in the future?
And thank you for clarifying. For me, this is an issue where we have to stay in touch and active in Tallahassee and with our legislatures and work with them as developments change. This particular issue was a change in how it was interpreted for the master schedule and how it would be looked at when the audit came through. And so that was part of what the issue was in the differential in the funding. You look at the situation also very similar to this in the new K through 8 school, the Elkhart school that's being put into place. Many of you will remember when we first started talking about putting that school in, there was possibilities of a partial build, no cafeteria. Again, that was a change in definition that came out of Tallahassee where pretty much the way you issue bonds for schools changed. So for us, and for me particularly, it's making sure we stay engaged with those legislatures. We're working with all stakeholders at the table, making sure the people with the best information are sitting there to make a decision when we're trying to decide what's best for our students and their futures.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Thorpe?
So Dr. Barber and Mr. Gunner pointed to the fact that this was a problem with our master schedule, and it was. And we, as superintendents, if we're a superintendent, we have to keep our thumb on what is the master schedule in every school and where are those instructional minutes being used. With that said, I do think there is some room for creativity. And I say that because the summer I became principal of Milton High School, which was on July 17th, by the way, of 2009, in that 3-week time span from becoming principal to starting the school year, I completely changed the master schedule to go from a regular schedule to a hybrid schedule. So every minute that we changed into that hybrid schedule was important, and it fit within the FTE guidelines. So I think there's room for creativity because that did give my students at Milton High School an extra period that they could do more activities through. So I think there's room for creativity, but at the same time, that superintendent must keep their eye and the thumb on what is the instructional minutes being delivered.
Thank you. Responses? Okay. Teacher salaries in Santa Rosa County are traditionally lower than neighboring counties. How can you ensure that you will bring the best, brightest talent to our area when neighboring districts offer more competitive wages? Mr. Gunter?
Well, this is one of the things for me where I think we just need to continue to work and improve those relationships with the teachers. For me, when you talk about stakeholder groups, obviously the gold standard for us and what makes our district as great as what it is the teachers and the staff that's in that classroom every day. So we need to have them involved in the decision making. For me, we need to put in some advisory panels so we can talk to teachers about what they want. I think really it's an issue where you just improve communication. You need to make sure you got them circled in on the decision making. Let them set priorities for them if they need more time, if they need planning periods, if they need resources. It's our job to support the teachers. So for me, I really look at it as an aspect where we've got to turn that model on. I'm working for you, you're not working for me, and we got to have them incorporated on the decision-making process.
Thank you. Mr. Thorpe?
I have a wife that's been teaching 25 years. I have a daughter-in-law, a brand new daughter-in-law that's starting her teaching career in Santa Rosa County this year. She taught a year in Alabama last year, and I have a daughter student teaching in the fall and hopefully be teaching soon. I am so excited for my daughter-in-law and for my daughter and what the legislature has done to help these new teachers. But I am devastated for our veteran teachers. It is so hard for me to see our veteran teachers going through what they're going through right now, and we have to help fix this problem. As superintendent, I have to be in Tallahassee. I have to be working on helping our veteran teachers get a fair shake in this situation. It is important, however, not to be mad that we are getting the funding for these new teachers, because I've seen an increase in the work in my department. 79% of our new teachers we were retaining. Now with my mentor program, 95% we're retaining. We need to help veteran teachers also, though.
Thank you. Dr. Barber?
My goal is to make Santa Rosa School District the #1 district of choice for teachers and educators. We want to attract talent because that's what our children deserve, the very, very best effective teacher. We just received, or will receive, about $4.9 million to increase that teacher pay. So that's wonderful. 80% of that will go towards teachers making less than $47,500, and 20% can go to teachers making above $47,500. But let's look at that. To make $47,500 right now in Santa Rosa County, you need to be at year 16. Wow. We can do better. We have to do better. So we really need to be transparent about the funds that we have coming in and determine what is the most important factor in student learning. It is the teacher. And we have to commit to that and create that culture that costs nothing, where teachers feel valued, respected, and listened to.
Thank you. On that note, A judge recently denied the use of impact fees, citing a lack of consistency and errors in calculations throughout the study conducted by the school board. What would you do to provide transparency with regard to financial records? Mr. Gunter?
Well, for me, it's one of those issues where I've got some concerns with impact fees and exactly how they were implemented, and a lot of the issues were pointed out by what the judge actually had in her ruling. So for me, some of the things when we talk about that is I'm a big advocate and had been from the beginning that we need to put citizen advisory boards in place to get that feedback from the community. Again, it's about getting stakeholders to the table and making sure the ones that are involved in the process and that's impacted by the decision, that they're going to be there sitting at the table helping us make those decisions. But one of the things that I'm concerned too about impact fees is just the equity in the process. I worked at King Middle School for years, and I worked in that low socioeconomic, that high poverty impact situation. To have a $4,000 impact fee on a mobile home, that will create a situation where a lot of students will not be able to access affordable housing. I had a whole lot of students that had an affordable housing situation because they were able to access a mobile home. With a $4,000 flat rate fee, that's just simply not feasible anymore, and it impacts a lot of areas that you don't realize. So for me, it's about equity, getting everybody to the table, and if they're needed, we make sure we justify it and open up the books and show people we've spent the money wisely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Thorpe?
First of all, let me be clear. I do agree with impact fees, but I also think impact fees should not come into play unless I agree with Mr. Gunter when he talks about equity, absolutely there. But I also think that we should never have went to the board without a solid report. That report has to be solid. We have to be able to hang our hat on that report. So we will see where that might go. But I do believe that impact fees need to be in place, especially to help the communities where the enormous growth is going. Therefore, I think transparency is so vitally important so that the citizens in that area can see where the impact fees collected in that area are directly impacting the building of schools in that area. So you will see me immediately stand up a website, a very transparent website that allows the citizen to go in there, click a button, and see where every budget is pointing to in Santa Rosa County. They'll be able to use the tool online. We are ready to do that now. We just need to start that process for citizens to find that on our website.
Thank you. Dr. Barber?
Growth is happening, right? We know that. We can see that. I talked with a realtor from the Navarre area just last week and said, how are home sales? Have they decreased since COVID? And she said, absolutely not. And we have about 1 month of housing stock in Navarre. So families are coming. Enrollment is going to go up. I do think we need to look at the effects of COVID because we're transforming the workplace right now with people working at home. And about 20% of our families have said, we like the remote learning option. We want our children to learn from home. And I want parents to have that choice about what's best for their children. We need to respect that. So as we see what comes in this next year, we're going to see where enrollment really is an issue. And then we need to come to the table with citizens and determine what we do next. As far as impact fees go, I'd like to see them be more equitable if they are still necessary. I'd also like to see home builders provide us with property that we can study and make sure that it is viable for buildings.
Thank you. Several of you mentioned the need for transparency. We currently have a local option sales tax whereby revenue is generated. Are you prepared to show the public how that money is being spent? Do you see that funding as sufficient to build new schools? Dr. Barber?
Yes. In Escambia County, they have the local option sales tax as well, and there is an advisory committee that comes together and really analyzes how are those dollars being used. In talking with taxpayers, I don't think anyone wants to deny our children the most excellent education they can have. And if they can understand that we need to adjust taxes, property taxes, by the way, or home values are going up right now, which is a wonderful thing for our community. So we really are in a good position. Sales taxes have continued to go up from January through June. So there is prosperity here. We just need to be transparent, and we need to be very responsible in the way we're using that, always making decisions in the best interest of the children and taking care of our teachers and our staff.
Thank you. Mr. Gunter?
Yes, ma'am. Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. We currently have a local option sales tax whereby revenue is generated. Are you prepared to show the public how that money is being spent, and do you see that funding as sufficient for building new schools?
A couple issues there. First off, on the sufficiency. Several years ago, the legislature started taking public education capital outlay dollars and sending those towards charter schools, private schools. That was typically maintenance money for the school district. So some of our capital outlay that could have been used to build is now used for maintenance. So we need to get active with Tallahassee and the legislation to try to get some of that funding restored. But then also for me, it's about accountability and trust. And so for me, I'm willing, if I'm in there as superintendent, I'm willing to open up the books, get an independent third party in there and say the money went exactly to where it was supposed to go. Because right now, if you look at one of the reports that are out, by our own coding and funding, we're documenting that we spent about $19 million out of $86 million on new constructions. And it has created questions, and those questions need to be answered. So for me, that's the issue where, again, through citizens advisory boards, we need to make sure we've got the stakeholders at the table. And the last issue, too, on that is just what you can do with lost dollars versus impact fees. Impact fees aren't bondable. Local option sales tax money is. We need to have the best option available for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thorpe?
Yeah, the local option sales tax money is very important, especially very important to the work that I'm involved in. Can it sustain building of schools? I don't think so. But what it can do, it fills in many, many gaps for us. For instance, I do get a portion of those dollars to provide projectors into the classrooms in Santa Rosa County. Actually, it is the only dollars that I get to provide projectors into the classroom in Santa Rosa County. And we use it feverishly trying to make sure that happens. I do think that we need to be more transparent with these dollars. I mentioned it in my last answer. I think we need an area on our website you go to, you click on sales tax, and you see a pie chart that shows you exactly where the dollars are being spent. And that report is tied into our financial system, and it is up to the minute showing you where the dollars are being spent. And I would hope that we see many of those dollars are being spent in the classroom. All of those dollars need to be affecting the classroom in some way. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of these...
Can we have an opportunity for clarification, rebuttal on that?
Absolutely.
I'm not really rebutting. I just wanted to provide some more information because as I spoke, I saw several people out there talking to some others about maybe they didn't realize that. When I mentioned the issue about impact fees not being bondable, we can't issue bonds on those. Right now, we do school construction, and we have to have bonds issued. We go out to the public for bonds, and for the school district, that's not bondable money. We can't spend it long term. We can't make long term commitments on it. Local option sales tax money, you can. Impact fees for the school district, they are not bondable, and you can't count on them because the county commission controls whether they go in and come out. The school district does not.
Any other points of clarification? Many of the emails we received from the community expressed some concern over the lack of diversity in faculty and administration, citing stereotypes that Santa Rosa County is, and I'm quoting here to be clear, this is not my wording, but theirs, a good old boys system. It's not what you know, but who you know, or that teachers of color do not get hired here. How might you recruit new, diverse talent to our district and or celebrate and advance the minority talent we already have? Mr. Thorpe?
Glad you asked this question, and I hope folks are hearing in my answers results. Every time that I give an answer, results. And I'd like to add another result. In my first hire as principal of Milton High School, I had the opportunity to hire the best assistant principal possible. And at the time, the best assistant principal candidate that I interviewed, I was able to hire. He was an African-American gentleman who is now a director in the school district and doing a fantastic job. I also had the opportunity to be the first principal in Santa Rosa County history to hire an African-American head coach for the varsity football team, and I was very proud to do that as well. Not hiring these folks because they're African-American, hiring these folks because they were the absolute best candidate that I interviewed at the time. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to hire the absolute best candidate possible every time, no matter what their background is, no matter what their culture is. We are looking for the best candidate every time.
Thank you. Dr. Barber?
Again, we put students at the center of our decision making. And so students really need to see teachers and staff that reflect their own culture. They need to have positive role models and teachers that they can relate to. So teacher recruitment from universities that have diversity in their education program is an absolute must. I took a look at the annual equity report from this past school year. We have almost 30,000 students. 5% of those are black. Only 3% of our teachers are black. 7.5% of our students are Hispanic. 2% of our teachers are Hispanic. 77% of our children are white. 92% of our teachers are white. And then you can look at male and female equity. We have 48% of our students are female. 83% of our teachers are female. Male, 52% of our children are male. Only 17% are male teachers. We need students to see themselves and have role models in teachers.
Thank you. Mr. Gunter?
Yes, thank you very much. For me, it's that issue I mentioned earlier where students have to see what they can achieve. So they need somebody they can relate to. They need those positive mentors. They need to be able to relate to the adults that are in the building that interact with them every day. And that's how those relationships are formed. So for me, it's kind of two-pronged. We've got some excellent candidates that are minorities that are in our system now. We have to grow our own from within. We have to make sure we're putting them in positions to be successful. If that means we need to put in mentorship programs, if that means we need to put in possible internships. In the past, we have actually ran an 11-month position, which was an administrative intern. It was on a teacher's salary. They got an extra month worth of work. That let them do some work in the summertime that's very, very needed if you're going into school leadership. We need to look at putting some of those programs back in place. But then, too, we've got to get them into the system. So not only do we have to grow and develop our own, but we have to go to the places where these minorities exist. From that standpoint, if we've got to go to college and universities that are producing those candidates, we've got to go there specifically to make sure we're recruiting the best quality candidates that are available. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebuttal?
Yes, thank you. Some additional information. I think we're all here to learn, right? I learned from our Human Resource Department that right now the budget for recruiting, for going to job fairs, for seeking highly effective folks to come to this area is only $5,000. Now, if the most important factor in student learning is the teacher, then we need to invest additional money to make sure that we are recruiting talent that reflects our student culture.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. Thorpe?
not really a rebuttal to Dr. Barber, but I just would like to add, it is so important that that I, as the next superintendent, put together an equity team. That equity team not only focused on administrators and teachers more equally reflecting our school district, but also what can we do for our students? What can we do in our school district so that our students always feel like they have a voice?
Thank you. What protocols need to be put into place to ensure safety and security of students, faculty, and staff in our world today? Mr. Gunter?
Well, obviously, this is a issue that raises high concerns and obviously some strong opinions on both sides. So for me, it's the issue where we need to work with the best information available as it develops. We are actually charged by the state right now to look at this and make sure that we are working hand in hand with our local health department. So I think one thing we need to make sure we do is we're working with the state health department, working with our local health department to put in the most up-to-date procedures and whatever protective equipment needs to be provided. Whatever those scenarios need to be, we need to make sure we're addressing that. But that needs to come at the direction of the health department and those healthcare providers, because we're not in the business of healthcare. We're in the business of education. So again, for me, it's about making sure you've got those stakeholders and those subject area or content experts available to guide you in those decisions. So it will be key that we work with them, but then also we've got to have some local control in that area, because right now a one-size-fits-all mandate from the state isn't serving our best local needs, and we need to make sure we're using our local information to make our local decisions to protect our students and our parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thorpe?
Yes, I'm going to sort of take this in a different direction. I love the relationship that the Santa Rosa County School System has with local law enforcement. With the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Department, with the Gulf Breeze Police Department, having the resource officers in the school are so important to the work that we do. I really, as superintendent, will be pushing our board to consider adding a second resource officer whenever a school reaches 1,500 students. I think it's just almost impossible for one resource officer to see all the spots, cover all the areas when our schools get so enormous in size. So I'll be pushing towards that direction. I also would like to say in relation to COVID-19, all three of us have served on the planning team, and our eyes have really been opened to many of the health concerns that the health department brings up. And I agree with my friend Mr. Gunner when he says that we leave that up to the health department to advise us in those areas. I believe we should do the exact same thing. We should rely on the health department and these health officials to advise us properly.
Thank you. Dr. Barber?
Certainly. We have two focuses when it comes to safety. Of course, first of all, since the Parkland shooting, we really want to make sure that our schools are secure. And that's why we have such a great relationship with our sheriff's department. And by the way, Sheriff Wendell Hall endorsed me. And I basically raised Bob Johnson. He was my SRO when I was AP over at Holly Navarre Middle School. So you're welcome. Now, going on to the CARES Act dollars, those dollars are being, the application comes through my office. And so I've had the opportunity to make sure that we have masks, gloves, e-misters for buses so that in the morning and the evening we're making sure that we fog those buses and they're clean, air purification system, and about 700,000 additional CARES dollars to make sure that we are cleaning above and beyond what we are doing. I want our teachers, our staff, our children, our parents to walk in and know that we have done everything we can to keep children safe from this virus.
Thank you. I appreciate all of your concern and comments on COVID-19, certainly, as that is a very immediate issue. One thing, as a teacher myself, that I would try to hello that I was surprised to see in our district is a lack of student IDs. The students don't have picture IDs at every school. Do you feel that that would be something that necessary to put in place, and what reasons may there be why we haven't pursued that at this point? Mr. Thorpe?
I think maybe the reason we haven't pursued it is probably the expense of student IDs for every student. Some schools have student IDs, sort of internal student IDs, but as far as having access control student IDs, which is what the employees have now, those are pretty expensive. As part of the team that decided on using the Volo app in Santa Rosa County, and part of the team to decide on the controlled access and the technology behind that for the district, I absolutely see where having student IDs would be very valuable. As a principal of a high school in my former life, it would have been very helpful to have IDs on my campus, especially as wide open as my campus was, with the lack of fencing around the entire campus. So I think student IDs, if we could afford it, would be a great thing to have in our school district.
Thank you. Dr. Barber?
As a school board employee, to get into any school board office or building, I have to scan my ID, and the door pops open and lets me in. If we have that for school board employees, then we need to have that for students too. And not only consider them for the single points of entry, but I can tell you that teachers spend an enormous amount of time making sure their door is locked and secure in the classroom, but going to the door and opening it each time a student needs to get in. So having that lanyard and that student ID there that will allow that student access into the classroom, I think will save some instructional time and continue to ensure that our students are being responsible and vigilant when it comes to safety as well.
Mr. Gunter?
And I appreciate the question, because for me, again, it's kind of looking at what we have in place, and I kind of go back to that business perspective a little bit as well, because there would be a additional expense incurred, and right now we're going to have to be sensitive to new budgetary items. So for me, it's an issue of what do we have in place that we potentially can put in measures like that. So as I look right now, every student's got a lunch number. Both of my children, I've got a eighth grader coming up and a fifth grader coming up. My fifth grader right now uses his lunch number, which every student has, that he uses for our security code at our house. He knows his lunch number. He's had it since kindergarten. So for me, if we put those mechanisms in place, don't buy $30,000 in badges, or don't buy 30,000 badges at whatever that expense would be. Go out and put a keypad on door where you need an entry for a student and tell them to punch in their lunch number. It's individual to every student. And then the feasibility too there is, are students, especially primary elementary kids, are they going to keep up with an ID? And how many times are they going to be lost and have to be replaced? So if we need that, let's be smart about how we do it and use mechanisms we already have available.
Thank you. Any responses? Students are the driving force of our district. I think we can all agree on that. Many times, administration becomes removed from the classroom. If elected, how will you remain engaged with students, parents, faculty, and staff? Mr. Gunter?
Well, for me, it's just kind of an issue where I go back to when I was the instructional leader at the school. I will tell you there were many times that I got a call from the district office and they asked me, hey, I came by and you weren't in your office. Well, absolutely not. I wasn't in my office because where I was at was in the hallways engaged with my students and my teachers and my stakeholders that were in the building. So for me, I look at the role of superintendent as you got to be that liaison. You got to be the liaison to the schools. You got to be the liaison to the teachers. You got to be the liaison in the community. You've got to be that positive connection that makes sure that you've got your ear to the ground and you're hearing what's needed in the community. So for me, improve those relationships everywhere by being an active listener. The old saying about that you have big ears and little mouth. And so for me, that carries you a long way. You got to listen. You got to hear what the people say, but you also got to be present for that. So I see that position as the superintendent for me. If I'm superintendent, I won't be at the district office as much as I will be out in the schools and the community relating to those stakeholders every day.
Thank you. Dr. Barber?
You know, when I was a classroom teacher and became an administrator, folks started to say, don't you miss the kids? And I said, well, what do you mean? I'm in classrooms all day long. So as superintendent, I plan to do the same thing. I'm not going to miss the schools because I'll be in them every day. I want to make sure that I'm visible and I'm supportive and I send the right message to our parents, to our students, to our teachers and administrators that I am there to serve them. I want them to see me being that lead learner. I want to also have at least a minimum of 2 faculty meetings with every school in our school district, and that's going to be tough. We have 34 campuses, but it can be done. I want to be accessible to our administrators, our teachers, our parents. I run right now our district parent advisory council with 20 of our schools represented, and I'd like to have regional advisory councils in each part of our county with teachers and community members.
Mr. Thorpe?
Okay, thank you. Again, results matter. When I was principal, I spent 9 weeks one year when I had a teacher go out on maternity leave teaching her class. 9 weeks, first period every day, I went and I taught her first period class. One thing that I really like about our neighboring county, and this might make some folks mad, is Superintendent Thomas, you see him everywhere. Everywhere. I'm going to be that superintendent that you see everywhere. I think it's important for the superintendent to be out there with their teachers, with the students, with the community. Right now, I am the director in the district that does not even have an office. I have an office area that I share with all the folks that work for me because I want to be out there directly with my team and not separated from my team. And I would do the same thing as superintendent.
Thank you. We will close with a 30-second closing. So, Dr. Barber, if you would like to start with our closing.
Effective leaders inspire people to do the right thing for children. Effective leaders in education. And I want to lead by example. Always shooting for excellence. Always modeling integrity. We have 3,200 employees and 30,000 students who deserve the very best in their leader. And so I want to bring that experience, that credibility, that integrity and proven leadership to the table. I've been endorsed by Wendell Hall. I've been endorsed by U.S. Congressman Jeff Miller, who served from 2001 to 2017. And recently, I received the endorsement from the Navarre Area Board of Realtors, and that was a unanimous decision. So I've been a leader, and I'm trusted by the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gunter?
Yes, well, one of the things I just want to make sure that people understand is for me, I will be accountable every day to the citizens as a good steward of taxpayer dollars. For me, it's looking at it through that business lens and a little bit different angle on how we make sure that Santa Rosa County citizens get the best investment for their tax dollars. Also, from that accountability standpoint, I will be accountable every day as the husband of a teacher and the father of 2 students that will be in Santa Rosa County schools. And lastly, for me, it's the issue where all stakeholders need to be at the table for any decision that we make. So citizen advisory boards are going to be key. Positive input and keeping that relationship, that's exactly where we need to be going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thorpe.
Yes, again, results matter. I took a high school from a D to an A in 1 year, my first year as principal. No principal ever did it before in the state of Florida. No principal's ever done it since in the state of Florida. I'm very proud of not for Mike Thorpe, but for the teachers and the students and the community that made that happen. Being superintendent is not going to be about Mike Thorpe. Being superintendent is going to be about the teachers and the students in Santa Rosa County. I'm going to do everything I can every day to lift up the teachers, lift up the students, because I have a student that lives in my house. I have a teacher, actually 2, that live in my house right now. I am, like Mr. Gunner, very accountable to my family of teachers.
Thank you.
Thank you.